Okay then, before getting on to the main review on the new Fujifilm 16mm f2.8, I'd like to show you a few images, and I'll have links below for download on several of these images. First, wanted to show you a bokeh shot. This was shot at f2.8, of course. There is extremely slight, almost imperceptible onion ring, but very beautiful bokeh actually on the 16mm 2.8. It's almost imperceptible unless you zoom in drastically. I don't think this would show up on any print at all. Even right here, it's imperceptible. So, very nice bokeh. This is at f2.8. Like I said, you can actually get in really close with this lens. And not only is it incredibly small, incredibly lightweight, you can get in extremely close. It's something I really like about lenses. Here, let me actually scale this image down a little bit to fit within the window. I have a shot at 2.8 on the left, f4 in the middle, and f5.6 over here. It's actually focused on the 2 and the 4 on all three of these shots. You can actually see you have a decent amount of chromatic aberration. It is soft at f2.8 close up. This is no doubt. The softness at f2.8 on the 60mm 2.8 is almost equally equivalent to that of the 23mm compact Fujifilm lens. So this is it. This is a shooting closest possible, which I can't remember the exact distance, but it's somewhere around 7 or 8 inches on closest focus. Everything clears up mostly so at f4 on the 16mm 2.8. These were all shot on the Fujifilm X-T3, by the way. Did multiple shots at each aperture, and everything is perfectly lovely over here at 5.6 on the right. So yeah, we do have significant chromatic aberration at 2.8, closest at 2.8 on the lens, and it is soft at 2.8. Like I said, we got f4 here and f2.8 here on the left. For a 16mm ultra compact, however, this is actually not bad at all, and this is untouched. You can clear this up in post-production, no problem. And let's take a look at some of the images. This was actually shot at 6.4 on this one. This is extremely bitterly cold outside today, and it started raining, but I've been out and about for many hours today with the lens. And I think I shot this one at, yeah, f5, straight up inside of a vine-grown pergola. Wouldn't that be correct? Okay. These are definitely extremely boring shots. This one is at 2.8. Here you again take a look at the background. I'm about a foot and a half away from this flower, but this is here you see a little bit of CA around the edge of the flower, and this again is untouched. You can clear this up with some clarity and some sharpening on the flower at 2.8, but this is the lens at 2.8. Yep, I'm over here at 2.8. Yeah, this one's also at 2.8. Very, very nice. I actually like the background blur on the 16mm 2.8. And that was focused here on, I forget what sort of flower this is. Outside it's very, very overcast and just about to rain outside. Not lovely weather at all. Didn't I shoot this one? Yeah, I shot this one also at f2.8. It's actually an extremely nice lens. When you understand that this is a 16mm, this 16mm is performing better than anything Nikon has or Canon has at 16mm. Undeniably so. I want you to take a look at 1,000. Actually, I think the current price on it, and it's not made anymore. It's not the fisheye 16mm lens, but the old Nikkor 16mm lens, which currently sells for a little over $1,000. This lens $400. I'd like you to take a look at the output on that lens if you want to, you know. Let's get down to my philosophy here. Compared to what? It's a 16mm lens at 2.8. Everything clears up perfectly, beautifully at f4. But Actually, really like this lens. So let's get on to the main review. I just wanted to show you some images, and the links for these are below. Actually, I'm not showing them here, but it's some black and white renderings on some of, well, not these images, but some other ones I shot with the lens. I actually really like the black and white output on it. Currently using Capture One that I have these images loaded into, the RAF raw files from the X-T3 and the new 16mm 2.8. So let's go on to the main review and compare and contrast it with the 16mm 1.4 and the other little lenses. There's the 35mm compact, the 50mm, and the 23mm. Thanks a bunch. Okay, great, wonderful, wonderful, wunderbar, as the folks in Deutschland would say. Where do I clip this? I guess I could clip it onto that, couldn't I? I suppose so. There we go. Yeah, that works, right? That works, yeah, doesn't it? Yeah. Since my motto seems to be, like, compared to what? I'd like to point out to you this neat old Nikkor lens that's not made anymore. It's a 14mm 2.8, and the difficulties of making fast, ultra-wide lenses. This lens is $1,300, and it doesn't even hold a match to the new Fujifilm 16mm 2.8. Just thought I'd let you know, actually this lens usually sells for about $1,800, so. As you've seen in the prior section, this is also the same lens at 2.8. It's a little soft at 2.8, as I mentioned in the first section of this video, with some decent chromatic aberration, but that was absolutely no surprise considering it's a 16mm. One thing I thought at first when the Fujifilm announced the 16mm 2.8, I had no idea it'd be actually this small. Here's the 16mm 1.4, and here's the new 16mm 2.8. It is made in the Philippines, and the other little midget lenses, compact lenses, the 23mm f2 and the 35mm and the 50mm f2 are made in Japan. This is not a poor man's 16mm 1.4. Its size, autofocus speed, and quiet autofocus for video make it its own lens. So I was incorrect in that earliest assumption of mine when actually Fujifilm announced this, because this lens is, now currently it is on sale for $750. That will end, I don't know when, but its price is $1,000. It's rather large. It's actually my favorite Fujifilm lens. Actually, it and the 80mm macro are my favorite X-series lens, and I have all of them, except for the 18mm, which I can't stand. But it is noisy, and it is slow autofocus. The 16mm 2.8 is 6.7 inches at its closest, essentially the same on the 16-1.4. One thing that I really love about it, you can get at 6 inches with the 16mm 1.4. So 6 inches versus 6.7 inches. The 16mm 1.4, however, let's be honest, even though it's my top two favorite lenses for X-mount, it's slow. It's really big. It costs a lot. It's got noisy autofocus due to the autofocus mechanism that actually drives this. And it is not for video use. So the downsides over the 1.4, and that's what you're paying $1,000 for this lens for, is that it has chromatic aberration and softness, as I've showed you in the first part of this video. If you want that really, sharp f1.8, f2, f2.8, you are of course going to have to spend, $1,000 for this lens. So, I mean, it's not for video, and it is expensive, and it's noisy, moderately slow autofocus. Most people don't realize that no matter how fast the camera is, like the X-T3 is smoking fast, autofocus in a camera system, which obviously always includes camera lens, is not merely camera side. It also is dependent on the lens. The fastest autofocusing camera in the world, whether that be a Sony or a Nikon D5 or the Fujifilm X-T3, even with its tremendous speed, can only drive a slow lens so fast. Camera speed for autofocus is not merely camera side only. That's something that everybody seems to always forget. The upsides, however, on this little teeny 2.8 to 16mm lens, which, by the way, is the smallest of the four between the 23 f2 and the 35mm f2 and the 50mm f2. The upsides of this compared to the 16-1.4 is that its cost $400. It's got ultra-fast autofocus. It's blasting fast. There's nobody that's going to be unhappy with this lens on their X Pro 2 or the XE2 or but the XT30. I've got an XT30 coming in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, which is wonderful, and this is a perfect little lens for it. This little tiny little lens. So ultra-fast autofocus. It is, like I said, tiny and very lightweight. It's got very quiet autofocus also. It's also, of course, far superior for video. You just not due to speed and noise, where you'd have internal noise due to the autofocus mechanism, and this not use this for video. You can very happily use this for video, and it's fast. So, like I said, if you want, what are the advantages of the 1.4? Well, you know, that's what you're paying $1,000 for. If you want that bokeh and that sharpness at 1.4, 1.8, f2, f2.8, then this is the lens for you. That's the distinction. And it still remains basically my top two Fujifilm X series lenses, right next to the 80mm macro. I said I've already compared this with the other little three, teeny lenses from Fujifilm. Of that, and I have to be pragmatic, I don't suffer from new toy syndrome. I absolutely do not. The 16mm, even though it just came out, it's like, oh, you're just saying that because that lens just came out, you know. Don't be a schmuck. And I'm not being. Actually, it's, of these four, this is my favorite. I've actually always, and I've said for ages, my favorite lens to have glued on a crop sensor camera or even a full frame is a 24mm lens or a 24mm equivalent, of which the 16-2.8 is. Not only that, it's incredibly tiny. This is going to be the perfect little front end wart, if you will, for the X Pro 2, XT30, XE2. Tiny little lens. I don't know what. Here's the lens hood. Yeah, I actually ordered a metal lens hood for this. It's got a little low profile wide angle lens hood. That's it with its lens hood. What is the 16mm 2.8 relative? We've already explained the distinctions and differences between it and the $1,000 1.4, which is rather obvious. It's an ultimate weighs nothing perfect travel lens. I mean, this is nothing. Like if you were to go out with your XT3 or your XT30 or your X Pro 2 or whatever sort of interchangeable lens Fujifilm camera, the fact that you have a couple spare lenses that take up no room, and possibly you could stick these in your jacket pocket or a really tiny, not camera bag, but something smaller than a camera bag pouch. I mean, this is nothing. If I were, and I wished I was, like heading to Sweden or Norway next week, or Iceland, which I wished I was, but I'm not, I would be bringing my XT3 and the 18-135. I'd be bringing this lens, and I would be bringing the 56mm 1.2 port. Definitely, no matter where I went, I would want to actually take this lens with me. It's nothing. Size is nothing. The weight is nothing. This is definitely the ultimate weighs nothing perfect travel lens. Very fast autofocus for street, and as a perfect 24mm equivalent, it's my favorite focal length. Most people said the 35mm equivalent, not 35mm lens, i.e. this lens, but a 35mm equivalent, but mine is actually a 24. That's just personal. This is certainly so the absolute single best perfect tiny little lens, like I said, for the X Pro 2, XE3, and XT30, and all interchangeable lens, tiny interchangeable lens of Fujifilm cameras. So I was wrong in my earliest assessment when this was first announced. It would be like a poor man's version of the 16mm 1.4, and it's not. There are distinct differences and advantages: cost, weight, size, autofocus speed, and performance, and definitely so for video. This is not a lens anybody would use for video. That's not dissing on the lens. That means this lens is not for video. It's just not. Noise, internal noise. Yeah, it's not a video lens. So, someone wanted to take the perfect wide-angle blogging lens, and also for downtown street photography. This is it, man. What a compact little tiny lens. Perfect. Let me actually take this and the lens hood off. And let me take the rear cap off. That's it. That's it. Actually at $400, and considering what it is, and I've been freezing my ass off outside, and like I said, there's raw files below you can click on and take a look for yourself. It says, what is the downside of this lens? You know, let's be honest and fair. I don't sell anything. I don't have any affiliate links. No matter what you buy, I don't make a dime. Let's be honest. What are the downsides of this lens? Other than it being slightly soft, as I've already shown, at 2.8 with a decent amount of chromatic aberration, most of which on those two you can remove in post-production. This is straight out of camera. There are no downsides to this lens. It's this is great. You know, Nikon and Sony and Canon don't have anything like this size. You know, Nikon and Canon have crop sensor cameras. They don't have anything like this. They don't. You know, the only lens that's smaller than this is the 27mm Pancake. And I got a couple of those. The image output on it's just wonderful, and so is it on this. But that lens is so insanely slow, and the autofocus is really, really, really noisy. But I mean, this really is only a hair taller. So far as slapping this on any interchangeable lens Fujifilm camera, like sticking it underneath your jacket or stowing it away, this is as small as it gets. So actually, this is definitely undeniably my top recommendation for an ultra compact lens to slap on your Fujifilm camera. Just bar none. There's just no denying that. So I think I'm fair and honest in the lens reviews. Like I said, I don't sell anything. I said the raw files and images links are below. So take a look at the raw files and mess with them, and tell me what you think. I just want you to be happy. I don't want anybody to be unhappy. That's why I actually take lens reviews seriously. And I had to backpedal on thinking this was a poor man's version of the 16-1.4 because it's not. So, and I just proved that. And those are the facts, Jack. I hope you like this video. If you do, you can always click the link below, because I was out freezing my ass today to do a thorough yet speedy, not rushed, but speedy lens review on the new 16mm 2.8. I did pay for this with my own money. I didn't get any discount on it, so yeah, next person that tells me that Fujifilm gave it to me, no. Just keep saying that and I'll upload the receipt for this lens. From Robert's Camera, by the way. Robert's Camera, the best camera store in the world. Sounds like an advertisement. They are my favorite camera store, however, so. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Peace out, Girl Scout, and I hope you enjoy the new 16mm 2.8 Fujifilm's best ultra compact lens, period, be it wide angle or otherwise. Definitely my favorite. And no, I don't suffer from new toy syndrome. Not after this many hundreds of lenses, I don't. Thank you. Bye.